Research shows that emotions drive 95% of buying decisions. This means for you, if you're a consultant or you're a coach or you're a service provider, your clients are actually investing in the experience and transformation and not just the service that they get from you. Welcome to the Master Your Business podcast, where we bring you the best in branding, marketing, and customer experience strategies. I'm Deirdre Martin, your host. And if you've been asking yourself how to level up your growing business, your marketing, your customer experience, or how to make more of an impact with your brand, this show is for you. You'll discover actionable tips and insights to help businesses just like yours gain clarity and illuminate the path to success. Train with industry experts, learn sales and marketing strategies, business and mindset hacks, and be inspired by authentic entrepreneurship stories. As your host, I share the no-nonsense advice that accelerated my journey from boring bank manager to industry thought leader in marketing and customer experience. Learn how I made the leap into the world of six-figure success, digital courses, keynote speaking, and co-authoring a #1 bestseller in just 1 year. Together with interviews from industry experts, this show ensures you're seen, heard, and hired by your ideal clients. Join our growing community of subscribers and let the Master Your Business podcast empower you to tackle your most significant challenges on your path to business success. Don't miss out. It's your turn to learn from the best and master your dream business. I was chatting with a client recently and she was feeling really frustrated with where she was at in her business and was questioning all of the things. She'd tried every logical approach in terms of trying to get visible, get out there. She'd tried strategy, she'd paid for ads, she'd adjusted her pricing. She did all of the things, but she was really struggling to close deals. And it wasn't until we dug into her messaging and her strategy that things really changed. And her strategy around emotion in particular, because what we realized was that she needed to move away from logic and tap into emotion. And that one shift absolutely transformed her business. And here's a surprising statistic you might not know. And that is that 95% of our buying decisions happen in our subconscious and they're led by our emotions. If you're tired feeling like you're doing everything right, but you're just not connecting with your audience, stay tuned because this episode is absolutely for you. I'm Deirdre Martin, a triple certified award-winning and international best-selling author, and I help entrepreneurs like you scale your business, whether it's your first 100,000 or your first million, get clients to say yes without sacrificing your integrity or burning out. And today I'm going to guide you through how you can take your clients along that emotional journey with you so that they say yes confidently and authentically. And why this is so important, I think, is because, ideally in your business, you don't want to be in the situation where you're trying to convince clients to work with you because it just doesn't feel good. So, that was one of the things I learned from my coach, which was you don't want to be in the convincing business. You want to attract people who are convinced and determined to work with you before they even come on that call. So stay tuned because I am going to share with you 3 strategies to help you infuse emotional depth into your messaging so that you can start seeing results. So first and foremost, emotion matters way more than logic. People will come on and they'll see your content or they'll have a conversation with you, and the emotion that they experience is in fact what drives the buying decision. Like I said, research shows that emotions drive 95% of buying decisions. So this means for you, if you're a consultant or you're a coach or you're a service provider, this means that your clients are actually investing in the experience and transformation and not just the service that they get from you. So here's something that I want you to think about when you're engaging with clients. I want you to touch on one emotional trigger in each touch point that you have with a client. Now, what I mean by a touch point is every interaction that a client has with your business. There should be some sort of an emotional trigger. And that can be something maybe that piques their curiosity, or it could be something that inspires hope, or something that just makes them feel relieved. Something that taps into an emotion, because every experience needs to have a feeling attached to it. And it's really interesting. I've interviewed Ian Golding for the show, and Ian Golding, he's like the original gangster when it comes to customer experience. And this is exactly one of the things that we talked about. It's that emotions, and it's not just the emotions when people become your customers, it's the emotions before they become your customers, which may influence why they did or why they did not, as the case may be, buy from you. So stay tuned for that. That episode is coming soon. But until then, what I was saying was focus on one emotional trigger in each piece of content that you create, irrespective of what that might be, and be intentional about it. So something that I think is important as well is that many people might think that value means technical or logical explanations, but actually value often lies in how people feel when they interact with your brand. And where I think this is important is because sometimes we perceive that, you know, it's tangible, but it's not always tangible. And an example came up with this in Million Eyes recently, where one client had been presented with an incredible opportunity to do a training and development program with a really prestigious company. I'm not going to name names because it'll be pretty obvious who it is if I explain it to you, but they turned it down. And the reason they turned it down was because it wasn't going to give them the return that they needed. And what I mean by this is, from a value perspective, it made her feel amazing that she was invited to do that. But from a different perspective, emotionally, she thought about, okay, what's the return on effort? How is it going to make me feel physically? What's the return on interaction that I'm going to have if I engage with that? Is it going to stress me out? How is she going to feel? So she was really trying to figure out how she feels, because she's trying to scale her business in a sustainable way. And doing that actually wouldn't have led to it. So there's different ways that we can think about emotion. And it's not always necessarily just when it comes to customers, but how we feel in our business every single day, day in, day out, that energy, that conviction that you show up with, and that feeling that you have when you engage with your clients is so important, because that will influence how you make them feel. My point is, had she said yes to taking on that fantastic job, it would have drained her of energy, which would have impacted the experiences that she gave her clients, because she does one-to-one coaching, she does group coaching, she has a membership, and all of that stuff would have affected that. And that would have had a more detrimental effect on her overall business, right? Okay, so the second thing I want you to think about here is that if you are thinking about a customer engaging with your business, I want you to think about the potential stages that a client might go through in terms of their emotion. So first off, think about what their objections might be and how they might feel. Literally put yourself in their shoes. So what I mean by that is, sometimes, let's say you're an accountant, okay? And a client had an accountant previously, but the previous accountant didn't support or engage with them. They literally did their tax bill for them and they didn't do anything else for them. And what ended up happening was, the end of the year came, they had a huge tax bill and the accountant never gave them any advice. So how is that client going to feel if they come to you as their accountant? They're going to feel skeptical. They're going to feel doubtful that you're going to be able to help them, and they're going to assume that they're going to have a huge tax bill this year as well, because that was the experience that they had. So they're doubtful. And part of that, if you like, content that you need to create in that instance is to create content that overcomes those doubts and overcomes those objections for them. Another one could be curiosity. They might be curious what's happening. And so a great way to satisfy their curiosity is to pique interest with examples of successful transformations from previous clients who have engaged with your services. So that can handle the overcoming the doubt, and it can also pique their interest and inspire them to move forward. They can feel, oh, I've got this. If that person can do it, I can do it too. So using other people's Case studies or testimonials can help satisfy that curiosity. And a great thing as well with curiosity and how you can tap into that from an emotional perspective is, I think about this, I know I definitely do this. If I'm looking for something, a service or something like that, what I am inclined to do is go on and look at people's testimonials, and I look to see, is there somebody who's just like me, who's availed of that service? Maybe they have a similar description to me, or they do something similar to what I do. I'm going to assume then if they had a good result or outcome with that person or business, that I'm going to have a good outcome with that person or business. And so that satisfies my curiosity. And so I want you to think about in your business, what might your customers be curious about before they work with you, and how can you satisfy their curiosity or pique their interest, be it with examples or social proof, or literally it could be an FAQ section on your website. What might that look like? So another part of this is to generate maybe some excitement. And I think excitement is so important because people need to be fired up, especially if they have to take action in terms of getting the results, so that they, what am I trying to say? So that they take the steps that helps them achieve the result. They need a little bit of fire in their belly. And sometimes with that excitement, what you've got to do is you've got to paint a picture of what that desired outcome looks like. And so again, you tap into the emotion of what that looks like. And maybe you are your ideal client. Maybe you do the thing now that, or you help people with the thing now that your ideal clients are currently suffering from or experiencing or as a challenge or pain point. And if that's the case, you can paint the picture of the desired outcome because you know what it feels like to overcome that challenge. Tap into what that feels like when you overcome the challenge. Another emotion to tap into is empathy. Okay. And what I mean by empathy is people need to feel like you get them, because they need to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that makes you relatable. It makes you meet them where they're at. It brings you to their level. And when you're at somebody's level, that makes it more easy for them to develop a relationship with you. When they have a relationship with you, and when they feel like they can trust you, it lends to two things. It lends to credibility, it lends to authority, and it also makes you the type of person that they want to work with, because they literally feel like you get them, and you've got them. Okay. So there's two parts in that. And I think one of the final ones is satisfaction. How can you make people feel satisfied and solidify the emotional connection after they've said yes? Because very often what happens, if you think about a customer journey and a phase that somebody might go through, is they get buyer's remorse. And I've literally had people say that. One of my clients who purchased Million Eyes, she was like, Deirdre, I said yes and I paid, and then I was like, oh shit, what have I done? But then we had our meeting and she was like, Deirdre, this was exactly how I felt. And I'm like, I so totally get it. And I was so appreciative of the fact that she told me. But because I was conscious of what that looked like, and I'm conscious that people might experience buyer's remorse because it's a big investment into Million Eyes, that they might have that oh shit moment. And so I'm really conscious that they get something pretty quickly straight away afterwards. And so, it's about, for you, knowing how can you solidify that emotional connection post-purchase so your clients avoid that oh shit and and bring it back to them, right? So I think a great way to do this and cover all of those things is to tell case studies. Like, one case study could tie in every single one of those emotions I've just mentioned. And that's a great way where you can nearly create a mental picture, a mental film, where you share those stories and people can see themselves succeeding. Okay, so another thing I think is important to bear in mind is a sort of a feel-good toolkit to use to build emotional resonance in your marketing. And so a couple of things that you can do for that are storytelling. You can tell real, relatable struggles that your clients have experienced. One way I love to do this is I love to share stories on LinkedIn where I assume the internal monologue of what a client is thinking. So it could be like, I don't feel like posting on LinkedIn. Oh, because there are times where you literally feel that, oh, and ugh, and I'm so tired and I'm burned out and all of that sort of stuff. And that's how a lot of my clients are feeling, or it's like, oh, I just don't know what to post on LinkedIn, or I feel like I'm getting FOMO. It's being in their shoes. That's one way that I love to do storytelling. And other ways you can do it is to share before and after situations. You could say, like, take people through the journey. This is where they were at before. These are the things that we did, and this is where they're at now. Another simple way to do it is to use the STAR, like you did in an interview, if you've ever heard of that framework, or SCAR is another way I like to look at it. It was the situation, the task, the action, the result, or the situation, the challenge, action, and result. And just tell a story like that. What I always say, if you're going to use STAR or SCAR, add an E to the end of it and make it stare or scare. And the E is emotion. Just go back and think about, okay, is there any emotion in this story? And if not, where can I add it? What was the feeling in the situation? What was the feeling when I experienced that challenge or had to do that task? What was the experience when I was taking action? How did I feel when I was taking action? Was I fired up? Was I meh? How was I? And then the result. How did I feel when I got the result? And weave in the emotion. Another way in terms of marketing and how you can leverage that emotional resonance and some tools to do that are visuals. You can use imagery because imagery elicits feelings, right? Imagery can make you feel calm. It can make you, it can create ambition or success. It can fire people up in that way as well. And sometimes it could be language that you shift to we language, creating a sense of empathy. So it's like we as business owners together, collectively do this, or I get you directly to that one individual customer, and it's speaking, to meet them where they're at. So what is a great way to do this, a pro tip here, is for you to create one powerful core story that represents your brand and has emotion deeply integrated within it. One fantastic lady who I did an exercise with this morning, as it happens, she's fabulous lady, and she works with clients very similar to me. She does something really quite similar to me, and she'd worked with me, did some coaching with me on energy and energetics, because I was feeling a bit off over the last couple of weeks. I'm not always like, woohoo, let's go. Sometimes I do feel a bit off, and I was off, and I was like, gosh, what is this? I just don't know. And I was like, things just feel hard, and I'm not like that. I'm like, generally I am like, woo, let's go. But at that time, and it was going on for a little bit, and I'm like, I need some help with this. And she's in my network, and I reached out, and so we swapped services. And so I helped her with her story today. And what we went through in terms of her story is a couple of different ways to weave in the feelings and the emotions and to always tie it in. So usually how I like to describe this from a story perspective is that people want something, but there's something that's stopping them getting what they want. And that makes them feel a particular way. So often people talk about the logical things that people want and the logical or physical or tangible thing that's getting in their way, but they forget to talk about the emotion. And the emotion is so important. But also it's the empathy piece, and the empathy piece is about emotion too. And you may be able to say, that was me. I was you. I know what it feels like. I have been in your shoes, and really explaining what that's like from a different perspective with your ideal clients. On the other hand, if that's something that's going to diminish your credibility or authority in front of your ideal clients, well, then another way to approach that is to say, many of my clients felt that way before they worked with me, but we've overcome that by doing this. So it's still demonstrating empathy, it's still tapping into the emotion, but it's not positioning you as weak, because people don't want to work with people who are weak. They want to work with people who are confident and strong and people they can trust, because they want people who make them feel safe. They want people who can give them the tools and resources so that they go away and they're empowered. They're like, I can do this. And yes, you can help me. I trust you. I believe you. You are the person for me. So that's what I want you to think about in terms of emotional resonance, is the different approaches that you can use in terms of the problem and how it makes people feel, and the empathy, and where you can weave that in your everyday content, communication, touch points with your customers, because it is all about the feelings, folks. Okay, last thing is nurturing relationships beyond the sale. So when clients are engaging with you, just because they've engaged with you once doesn't mean they're never going to engage with you again. And if you have a long-term relationship, those long-term relationships are built on a continual emotional connection. And continual emotional connections really are founded on trust. They're founded on clear communication and expectations being met. So what I recommend from this perspective is that you have some system or process in place where you have personalized follow-ups with clients. You can even do them in bulk and use email to personalize them in some ways. You have maybe a downsell or an upsell or a renewal offer so that people will come back to you repeatedly. And also that there's something that creates still a sense of community for them post-purchase, because people want to feel connected. They want to feel like they belong. And if you're a coach and you're listening, you'll know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One of the foundational elements is that sense of belonging. So how can you create that feeling for people beyond them buying from you on day one? So think about that and how you might be able to incorporate it. And a hack I have around this as well is, if you can, engage regularly with tips, share some celebrations that you are experiencing yourself in your business, but also celebrate your clients' milestones, or send them something that's encouraging, offer them some support in some way so that they feel cared for, that they feel valued. And in doing that, they're really going to feel supported and want to stay with you, especially if they're going to get results, and if they're getting results, even better. So let me think, what was I going to say? One of the things that I think you could definitely look at to help you with this is a customer journey map that I've created previously. And this will align really well with Ian Golding's episode that we have coming out in a few weeks. So you can download the customer journey map template from the show notes. Go and check it out. And be sure to tune in for Ian's episode next week. So let me just remind you what we've covered today. We've learned why emotions matter way more than logic, how to think through and map out the emotional journey of your buyer from pre-purchase to post-purchase. And I've shared my top tips for creating a free feel-good marketing toolkit. So some of the actionable advice I gave today is to choose one emotional trigger and weave it into your next piece of content. Start small, but definitely be intentional. And again, go and check out the customer journey map template so that you can plan out the different touch points you have with your customers and how you're going to make them feel at each stage. So folks, if you enjoyed listening to today's episode, I'm so grateful that you're still here. Thank you so much. Please do me a favor and give the show a rating, or leave me a review if you're listening on Apple, and be sure to subscribe if you found it helpful. Thank you so much. And until next week, keep mastering your business.